Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Michelle Nagel. Michelle is a TEDx speaker and international best-selling author, the Roar to Win podcast host, and president of Soul Shift, Inc., known as America's #1 resilience expert. For over 20 years, Michelle has guided people through transformation after trauma, betrayal, and healing core wounds. Personally endorsed by Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul books, Michelle has guided people from all walks of life to make internal shifts that propel them to success, teach them to banish overwhelm, and find joy in their lives. Michelle is a certified Success Principles Canfield methodology trainer, a HeartMath certified trainer, and is a post-betrayal transformation certified coach, an intuitive healer and energy therapist who has personally walked the path of healing after trauma. Michelle can help you go from who you are to who you want to be. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my next guest, Michelle, who happens to be one of our certified PBT coaches. Michelle is going to be talking all about the shame of betrayal, what happens to us when we're betrayed, broken heart syndrome, and so much more. You're going to love our conversation. Here's Michelle. Okay, everybody, this is just going to be another amazing episode because we have the incredible Michelle Nagel with us. And not only is she wonderful in her own right, she happens to be a certified PBT coach. So she'll be talking all about that and what an incredible contribution she's making to the entire PBT community. But we'll get to that. In the meantime, welcome, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Debbie. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, of course, of course. You know, let's just dive into just the whole idea of there's so much shame when it comes to betrayal. Here we've been betrayed, but we're feeling the embarrassment, shame, fear of judgment, whatever. But I really want to talk about shame because it's such a destructive emotion. Yeah. But tell me about it from your perspective.
Well, Brene Brown says that shame is actually the most destructive emotion that we have. And for me, once I was betrayed, it's because it is all, we look at a betrayal as a complete reflection of ourselves, the rejection, the pain, and everything that comes because of ourselves. I looked at it as, what have I done wrong? I must be a really bad person. Maybe everything he's saying about me is true and I just don't know it. And so I'm spiraling down into this hole of looking at what's wrong with me, how am I flawed, what could I have done better? And the shame, it makes no sense. I'm not the one who broke the relationship. I'm not the one who stepped outside the bounds of the relationship and broke all of those spoken and unspoken rules. I didn't do it. And yet I felt intense shame. And I didn't even want to show my face because I was afraid that somehow there was, I don't know, maybe a scarlet something across my forehead that would just let people know, this person is broken or this person is bad or something. And so for me, even going out into public where somebody might know was really, really difficult. And I live in a really, really small community. So going downtown, knowing that my betrayer was downtown with the mistress, and then they knew that we were still married, I would have people come up to me and say, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. And I'm going, how do you know what's happening to me? And they would say, well, this is a really small town. We can all see what's going on. And so there's the shame on top of that too. I just wanted to crawl under a rock.
Right. So how'd you manage it? What did you do?
For a while, I did crawl under a rock. I searched everywhere to see what I could find to help me heal, because at first I did start looking at what's wrong with me, because we have a tendency, especially if it's been that you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, the people that a narcissist is in a relationship with, they always are looking at themselves. How can I serve others? How can I be good to others? We're just giving so much to everybody else all the time. So the first thing I did is I went in and it's like, what's wrong with me? And I spent months and even years actually trying to figure out what I could do to change me so that I would get my betrayer back. So it was all of this stuff that I was doing. And then one day I realized that I was killing myself. so the betrayer did what he did, and that was traumatic and terrible, but to allow it to go on for such a long time without any healing for myself, then the damage became my fault, because I was beating myself up, because I was trying to find out why I was such a bad person. So it's like I'm constantly saying, this is my problem, this is my problem, I'm the bad one. And then one day I found you. Oh my goodness. And I had invited you onto my podcast, and we talked, and it just clicked, and I'm just going, oh my goodness, this woman knows everything that I've been through. She understands it from a very personal level. And just to be able to find you was like a lifeline. I really, truly had gotten to the point of where I was suicidal. And there was this lifeline that was thrown to me, and I grabbed onto it with both hands and just devoured everything that you had, because it was, this is truth. This is real. She gets this. She understands this, because so many people will say to someone who's been betrayed, oh, just get over it, or just go find somebody else.
And see, and I want to stop you. First of all, thank you. There are so many amazing things you said. First off, think about how we take it personally as if we did something wrong. Now, I'm not saying don't take a look at how we may have contributed, whatever it is that we could have done. I'm not saying don't take a look at that. What I am saying is look at how obvious it is that someone broke the rules of that relationship, and somehow we blame ourselves. And then we try even harder, as if trying harder is going to make some sense out of it, or just beating ourselves up is going to make some sense out of it. And we go searching for, what did I do? Right? And isn't that just so typical of just so many people who've been betrayed, and how we blame ourselves? And if I were only this, or I only did that, okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, think about how desperately we need support at a time like this, and how that's the last thing we look for, because we have so much shame, because we're so worried about being judged or embarrassed or whatever it is, and then how we make ourselves sick. And, Michelle, you told that story, and I had a similar one. I may have shared this with you, where here I was, I had never had a panic attack in my life. Mm-hmm. And it was not long after my betrayal. And really all I was doing in those early days was clients, kids, crash. Clients, kids, crash. That was really it. And I was on a client call in my home office at the time. And at the end of the call, I got really dizzy, really nauseous. Everything went black on me. I quickly hung up, and I think it was my daughter who took me to the hospital. I thought I was having a heart attack, because for weeks before that, I had heart pain. And I know they say with women, it's a silent killer. And I was like, oh, this is really hurting. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is a heart attack. And then here they are hooking me up to all these things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. This place is for sick people, Mm-hmm. And I said, I have to get it together. This will kill me. Mm-hmm. And so I understand, how this manifests physically, and really how it can kill us if we're not careful. So what did you do? So what'd you do about that? So then you saw, okay, there's a plan here, and I can somehow do something with this. What was the next step? What'd you do?
The next step is to really go deep and heal myself physically as well as mentally and emotionally. So I developed actually broken heart syndrome, which is where your heart actually changes shape because of what experience you've had, of the trauma that you've had. And they used to think that it was a short-lived kind of a thing, but now they've discovered that it can go on for a long time. And so I was having those heart pains too. And I had never had a panic attack in my life either. I mean, I've been a coach for 30 years. And so people would say, oh, I feel anxiety, I feel a panic attack. And, intellectually, I'm all over that. I'm trying to be as supportive as I possibly can. But now it's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what that feels like. I know what that's like. So it was really important to me. So I actually took myself to Switzerland for 2 weeks and checked myself into a medical clinic where they just basically worked on helping my body heal from this major trauma. And my little doctor, she put her hands on her hips and she said, you love him? Yes. He is not worth your life. And as I was sitting there looking at my blood work and looking at all of my numbers and everything, I'm going, she's right. I am killing myself.
Right.
And he isn't worth it. So,
Right.
We have to get to a point where we become the focus. We become the person that is most important to us. So yes, we may have children that we need to take care of, and they're awfully important. But we have to do the self-care. And we have to learn how to love ourselves. And so that was the journey that I took myself on, is learning to love myself, which of course it brought up all of my childhood traumas. And I had to deal with those too. And I discovered my limiting beliefs. And my core limiting belief is I don't matter. Yeah. And so when I learned that, it's like I had to go deep inside myself and start peeling away all those layers of protection and defense and everything else, and just be raw. And it was a painful process. I wish that this would not be a painful process, but it is.
And here's the thing, and that brings up a couple of other things. First of all, this work is not easy, but it's transformative. And this is also why so many people choose to numb, avoid, distract. Mm-hmm. This is why they're using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to avoid facing exactly what you faced. Exactly, it's because these are painful feelings. And then what happens is we start uncovering, and we discover more, and we discover more. Like going back to that, these childhood emotions and feelings and beliefs that absolutely don't serve us. You know how the mind works. We will look for confirming evidence. So if we've grown up, whether someone instilled it in us, whether we just instilled it in ourselves, I'm not worthy, I don't matter, we'll find confirming evidence all day long to support that belief. So how did you, because there are so many people listening right now that say, that are thinking what he or she said was right, or I don't matter, or I've believed I haven't mattered for decades. Why should I start believing it now? What's the first step, I could take now to even make sense that maybe I do matter, and start moving towards a positive, in a positive space?
I have a mirror in my bathroom. Since I live alone, I can do whatever I want to do with it. And I have little promptings that have come to me. I write them on the mirror, because if I write in my journal, I don't go back and read my journal. So it's like you put it on the page and then you close the book, you never see it again. But these positive things that come to me, these thoughts that come to me, I write them on my mirror. And I pass them all the time. Every time I head into the bathroom, there they are. And I see them. And when I'm putting on my makeup, they are right there in my face. Mm-hmm. So I remind myself and have a conversation with myself. And I tell myself that I love me. I need to do that. So I look deeply in my eyes in the mirror and I say, Michelle, I love you. And sometimes I hug myself. I do anything that getting away from the rewarding like this thing of, if I've been a good girl, I'll give myself some chocolate. That's really just numbing and distracting and avoiding and harming myself. So I don't reward myself with food anymore. Now it's that if I've done something well, and it used to be that I would do something and then I would move on to the next task without actually celebrating the fact that I had done something well. So now I make sure that I take the time to do that, because some of the things that I experienced was they were chipping away at my self-esteem, and have been for years and years and years. And so I look at what I do as like, I have to stop. I go, wow, look at what you just did, Michelle. That was really good. That was really great. You just helped somebody, or maybe you accomplished something with business. You did something that was neat. So I take time to not do a virtual pat on the back. Sometimes I actually reach back and pat myself on the back. That was a good thing to do. And I keep track of the good things that I do every day. And sometimes in the very beginning, the good thing was I got out of bed, I took a shower, and I got dressed. That was a good thing.
And you know what? I think so many of us, we're really reluctant to reward ourselves, and I get that, but just even to acknowledge what you're doing, this is hard stuff. And you also brought up leaving those prompts on the mirror and just saying, I love me. if I tell you how, and you know this from the work that you're doing, how many people find it so challenging to even look at themselves in the mirror. And that's that shame thing again. So even if you start by glancing at yourself in the mirror and
Yeah.
being okay with that, right? And then you hold that gaze a little bit longer. And isn't that so, it's so powerful. I know Louise Hay with the mirror work, it was so transformative. And that it should be so challenging is such, I mean, that's a crime right there. Why should we have such a hard time looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying we love ourselves? But, you know, it's so important and so powerful. So you realized you had to take care of yourself. You realized I'm worth it. What did that shift lead to for you?
Well, I have had the courage to do things that I didn't have the courage to do before, because I had been told that in a very sarcastic way. I was like, oh, you always have to be the expert, kind of a thing. And so I was trying to play down, trying not to be visible, trying not to do that. The synchronicity of things that are happening to me in my life, I mean, it's just so exciting. I'll open up my email and there's a request in there from somebody that I have no idea who they are, but they want me to be on their radio show. It's like, okay, I have no idea who you are, but I'd love to. So because it's so important to get this message out to people that you can heal from betrayal. And so I just, the things that have begun to happen for me are things that I had been working for 5 years and striving for and fighting for. And it was just so hard. But then I went back and I began healing myself and doing the inner work. And those things that I was trying to get to are beginning to come to me. And that's because you talk about changing the vibration. So I've been doing the work and I've been changing my vibration. And as I vibrate up here in the higher level, those people that I've been chasing all along who were already at a higher level, I couldn't get there because I wasn't at a higher level. And so I feel better now. I feel like these things are coming to me because of the work that I've done.
Yeah. And again, this is not to say that this work is easy, but is absolutely transformative. And it's true. We can only receive what we're putting out. Everything is energy. So if we're resonating at a certain level, well, what can we expect? That's all we can expect back. And I even told you, you look different. You look different from when I first met you. And it's so incredible how when I watch someone heal from betrayal, it's almost as if they're carrying around this 500-pound boulder. You know, think about it. You can't see anything in front of you. You can't carry anything else. That's all you're carrying. And when you set that down, you're able to see what's in front of you. You're able to grab opportunities. Your hands are free. Your arms are free. And looking at you, everybody, you don't have the pleasure of looking at Michelle. I am looking at her now because we're audio, but I'm looking at her on video. But she looks radiant and glowing and beautiful. And that's what transformation looks like. And, you know, and that's not to say, and you can attest to this, that's not to say that we don't slip and, you know, and those triggers don't get us, because they do. Those triggers are so painful and so powerful. But I have to say, I know it for me personally, I believe with you too, it's like a little edge that we have because we're teaching this work. We kind of can't afford to slip too far. Right. Because we're showing up to teach everybody. I mean, you know, Michelle, you're teaching in our community all about narcissism and all about healing from betrayal. You really can't, as much as you can go down that slippery slope, you can't stay there for too long because you need to represent that role. And there's something really powerful about that. I want to get back to something you said before about childhood betrayal, because this is a wound that can shape our entire lives. How did you work through that? How did you make sense and then meaning out of that?
Well, I've studied the adverse childhood experiences study. That has really opened my eyes a great deal to realize that because of the traumas that I experienced, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm a 9. So I've had a lot of childhood trauma, and to realize that my brain has different shape than other people's brain because of that childhood trauma. And that makes a big difference for me to be able to look at the world in a different way. For me, I have always looked at the world like the world is a dangerous place and how can I save myself because everything out there is going to get me. And when I've been in relationships with other people who have less adverse childhood experiences, they're looking at the world like, oh, it's a wonderful place. Everybody's so kind and wonderful. And I look at them like, you're insane. This is a dangerous place to be. And just realizing that, knowing that that is the way that my brain works, has been very, very helpful to me. And then I work on realizing that the experiences that I had, the betrayals that I had as a child, they were not my fault. You know, that's where you think about, well, my parents treated me this way because I must have been a bad kid. And I've had that my whole life. It's like, what's wrong with me that my family treated me that way? My partner treated me this way. It's a long, long line and pattern of abuse. And so I now look at, after the healing that I've done and all the work that I've done, and I've had lots of wonderful coaches. You cannot do this work by yourself. I've had lots of wonderful coaches. I've had therapists. I've had the whole gamut of people who have helped me go through this transformation that I needed to go through. And when I got to the point of where I want to help other people do this, because other people, you know, it took me such a long time to get from point A to point B, and I know all the tricks and what works and what doesn't work in between. So now I can get you to point A to point B in a much, much shorter time. And that was something that, I feel like it's a blessing. And I look at the betrayal and so many things that happened in this last betrayal that it devastated me more than anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I can look at it now and it's like, okay, look at this though, because I got in a kind of an exploratory relationship with a guy with maybe I'll let you close to me, maybe we'll have conversations. And I realized that he was triggering the heck out of me. And I would not have recognized that before. Before I would have just thought, okay, well, this must be you. You know, I would have taken the shame thing on again. I would have said, oh, this must be, there's something wrong with you. You can't get along with this person. What is the problem? Now I look at it as like, no, this guy triggers me. We are not entering into a relationship. I look at that as a strength now.
Oh, it absolutely is. And you know what? And that's one thing, doing this work, your BS meter is so sharpened and so strong. It's, you could sniff that out from a mile away and right there. You also said something else. And this is what I see so often. When we don't do the work to heal the betrayal, it's so common to have repeat betrayals, not because it's good, because it's so familiar. It's what we know.
Yeah.
So we just keep moving into the same type of relationship without that awareness. What would there's so many people don't want to look at those childhood betrayals. What advice do you have for them?
Well, we are an accumulation of every experience, every thought, and every belief that we've had in our entire lifetime. And if you're not willing to look at the childhood betrayals, then you're cutting off the core basis of you. You're cutting off the foundation of you. And you can't just heal a surface thing. If you do, it's more like whitewashing it. It's like painting it over and putting a picture. Isn't that pretty? And you can't see the hole in the wall because you just hung a picture up. Not a hole back there, by the way. But it's you've got to go back and like you've talked about the house that's been destroyed for some reason. The house burned down to the ground. You have a foundation there. Are you going to build a house on a foundation that's got cracks and holes in it? Or are you going to build up the foundation and then rebuild a house the way you want it to look like? So I have, and many people who have gone through childhood trauma have a faulty foundation, not because there's something wrong with us, but because the people that were raising us were poking holes in our foundation. So the destruction came from outside, but we internalize it. And that's, if you're not willing to go back and heal the childhood stuff, you are going to repeat the same patterns over and over again. You're going to find the same people to treat you the same way that you're familiar with, where you're comfortable. It's like something inside you says, oh, this feels normal. And normal is not always good.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. And it's so true. What beauty can you possibly build on a faulty foundation? You just can't. Nothing can be solid and strong. And in my house example, I say, oh, sure, you could patch it up, but with something like betrayal, that house is leveled. But here's the gift. The gift is you could build whatever you want.
Yeah.
Why in the world would you build that same thing? You have the opportunity now, but it takes a different, looking at it through a different lens, you have the opportunity of building something so completely different, so magnificent that you wouldn't have had that not happen. And just like your example of getting into a conversation with someone who's triggering you, now the old you, the unhealed version of you would have said, okay, well, this is familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just find a way to make this work.
Right.
But here's transformation, everybody, because the new transformed Michelle says, oh, you know what? That doesn't work with this new house I'm building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the other thing with transformation too is this, we talk about the different stages, right? And moving from stage 3, which people get stuck in and stay there, and then stage 4, that finding and adjusting to a new normal, and stage 5, that rebirth and that building something completely new. When you think of moving, right, into that new house, condo, apartment, office, whatever, you don't take everything with you. Right? If you were to move into a new space, you don't take everything with you. And here's such a perfect example based on what you said. Those old beliefs, it's my fault, it must be me. You didn't take that with you. And that's why you could never recreate something old. So I really wanted to stress that because it's so important for everyone to see. What's a tool that listeners can use right now that'll help them in stressful situations?
Breathing. This sounds like such a kind of a woo-woo thing, or it's so simple. It's like, oh yeah, how is breathing going to help me? But there's a study done by HeartMath Institute in Boulder Creek, California. They have studied the heart for the past 25 or 30 years, and they've discovered that if you live from your heart rather than living from the head, then you're going to be much better off. And if you think about it, you can't live without your heart. Your heart has to function. Your heart has to pump. It has to move the blood around your body. And all of the information that you get from your autonomic nervous system, from the parasympathetic nervous system part of it, comes up the front of the body, and 80% of that information stops at the heart. So what you do is you breathe in deeply to the count of 5, all the way down to the belly. And then you breathe out to the count of 5. And then as you're doing that breathing, that repetitive 5 in and 5 out, you imagine breathing through your heart. And so I kind of envision my heart having gills on it. So you do that. But you breathe through your heart. And then you remember a time when you did feel love, when you did feel safe. And you gather that around you where you can have some appreciation and love and gratitude for something. It could be a child, it could be a pet, it could be somebody who's supporting you. And just hold that in your heart as you're breathing 5 in and 5 out. And that will ground you. That will make it so that you're solid. It puts you at a heart coherence, which is the same vibrating frequency as the earth vibrates at. So it will actually, it's a physical thing that you can do easily. You can do it wherever you are. Nobody needs, and you breathe anyway. So it's.
I was going to say, we're breathing anyway.
So it's not like somebody's going to say, ooh, she's doing something weird.
Oh, she's breathing.
Exactly. But when you do that, the 5 in, slow and deep, and the 5 out, and then concentrate on your heart and having those good emotions in your heart, that will ground you. That'll help it so that you can stop shaking. It will make it so that, but it requires practice, of course. You need to practice doing that. But that's something you can do if you're like triggered in at work. You're breathing anyway. Nobody's going to know that you're breathing differently. So, or if you're triggered in an interaction with somebody that you have to interact with that you used to have a relationship with and you don't any longer, those are the things that you can do. It's a simple thing. It's something you carry around with you all the time because your lungs go with you. Just
I love that. It's simple, it's doable. And, with a betrayal, our heart hurts. So here's something we're doing. It seems like just a little thing that's just really caring for our heart. Michelle, what's something you want to make sure everyone knows before we wrap up?
What I want to make sure everybody knows is that your betrayal was not your fault. It was not something that you did. And you are a beautiful, priceless individual just because you're here, because of the value that you bring to the world by being in it. And your betrayer cannot take that away from you. And I'd love for you to be able to go back and discover who you really are and let that shine.
Beautiful. And Michelle is such a beautiful example of what betrayal, really the gift in betrayal, what it creates. She is a glowing example of transformation. We are so blessed to have her as part of the PBT community. She's just helping so many wonderful people with her experience. And that's the other thing too. It's like, if we've gone through something really challenging, what a gift to be able to do something so powerful with it. So I just want to thank you for all you do for so many. And I know everybody listening is going to get so much insight based on what you shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love how Michelle talks about the positive prompts she sees whenever she looks at her bathroom mirror. Simple and powerful, and also how important it is to acknowledge the hard work of healing, because this stuff isn't easy. Stay in touch with Michelle by going to isoulshift.com, and we'll have everything in the show notes at pbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. Breathe. What a simple but loving way to show yourself some self-care and give your heart some TLC. I also love what she shared about the faulty foundation many of us have when we've experienced significant childhood betrayals, and how important it is to realize it's not our fault, but it does create some extra work because we see experiences through a different set of lenses when we've had a challenging childhood. If you haven't already, be sure to take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz at pbtinstitute.com/quiz. And doors are open to the all-new PBT membership community. Imagine everything you'd ever need to become your physical, mental, and emotional best. Community, support, certified coaches like Michelle, and practitioners. You can schedule time with daily classes on all kinds of interesting topics, curated experts teaching advanced strategies in the areas of health, mindset, personal development, spirituality. Imagine the most friendly, welcoming, and supportive place to become your best, all online. I'm so excited to welcome you. Just go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Thanks so much for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.